If you have come to this channel to find out how to start your first campaign, you're in the right place. Whether you are a people games master, a pencil games master, or a confused games master, there will be help for you in this video. You'll be confused on a much higher plane. This is about campaigns that are used to structure adventures which are broken down into encounters. A campaign can be run in many different game systems. You've got to play the game. Running a tabletop role-playing campaign is both an art and a craft. A successful campaign requires imagination, preparation, flexibility, and a willingness to learn from experience. Some GMs are interested in preparation, which makes them more adept with the pencil rather than with people. Others are the reverse, wanting to see the people and feel the magic. Hey baby, which one are you? You'll soon know. While many players begin role-playing games by simply gathering friends around a table, a long-term campaign demands more than enthusiasm alone. It is the expression of the imagination made into specific details of communication and the rewards and punishments that go along with that. The first difference is between people who like to prepare and those people who want to interact with players. The problem is that when you're just starting out, you don't know which kind of GM you are, and you seem like the kind of GM who hides from players and doesn't know how to prepare the session. We are going to change that by giving you advice on how to create the campaign and how to ask players for their input. Remember, first and foremost, this is your first campaign, and you will be making a good deal of mistakes, many of which have been made by numerous GMs before. But there is a magic to the first campaign that you run because it is a dizzying experience that cannot ever be replicated. Drunk will take a second place to running. There is a difference between a dungeon-based campaign, a gumshoe-based campaign, a superhero-based campaign, and you have to make that decision before beginning to play. An example is the movie Outland. Originally, the director wanted it set in the American West at around 1875, but the movie company executives wanted it to be in space, so they compromised. It was set on the innermost moon of Jupiter called Io, but the structure and beats were entirely of a movie set in the American West, 1875. Compromise is your friend. In addition, finding players, organizing sessions, and evaluating performance after each game are all essential parts of becoming an effective games master. The first trick is to ask the players for their advice. A campaign is not merely a sequence of adventures. It is a continuing narrative shaped jointly by the players and the games master. Some campaigns focus on heroic deeds and legendary quests, while others explore horror, politics, dystopian societies, or criminal intrigue. Understanding the purpose and structure of a campaign before beginning is one of the most important steps towards success. Asking the players is one of the keys to winning that success. If they want a fantasy adventure and you propose a cyberpunk world in Tokyo 2075, then no amount of crafting of the details will change the fact that there's a mismatch. Give the audience what it wants and find the places where you build worlds within that framework. Remember that a campaign consists of adventures, and adventures consist of encounters. An encounter must be reasonable in the context of the adventure, and the adventure should be consistent in how it is presented to the players as a vignette in the campaign's narrative arc. Then make an announcement when Session 0 will be, when the players write up characters and the expectations as to the campaign are set. I say this as a games master. You will be the most eager person to make this happen. You need to get everyone on board. We will talk about Section 0 in a later video because it is so important. Thus, to answer the question posed above, if you enjoy studying history and working through complex machinations of trade routes, you will probably be a pencil games master. On the other hand, if you enjoy asking people questions, then you are probably a people GM. So a pencil GM is an introvert and a people GM is an extrovert. A concept that sounds exciting for a single evening may become repetitive after several months of play. Because of this, the games master must think carefully about sustainability, player interest, and long-term direction. This is because no one else has your players, so what works for your players will not work for others. Even the author of Game of Thrones did not start out there. He had to work his way through the lessons of writing, just as a novice GM has to learn his way through the lessons of games mastering. This, remember, is a first attempt, not the final masterpiece. One of the major considerations is the player's objectives. Are the players treasure hunters seeking wealth, heroes attempting to save kingdoms, survivors struggling against impossible odds, political operatives maintaining rival factions? A campaign works best when players clearly understand what they're trying to achieve and have some input into the campaign before it's even started. The length of a campaign is another important consideration. Some campaigns are intended to only last a few sessions, while others may continue for years. As a first campaign, the idea should be to last about 6 months, so both the GM and the players know each other better as role players than before. Tone also matters. How evil or morally dark is the campaign? Some groups enjoy heroic fantasy where good triumphs over evil, while others prefer morally ambiguous settings where corruption and compromise are unavoidable. Establishing this early helps players create characters that fit the world. The mechanics of the game influence this style of play as well. A level-based system, such as many fantasy role-playing games such as D&D, emphasizes advancement through milestones and increasing power. Similarly, some campaigns track resources closely, requiring careful management of food, ammunition, money, and travel supplies, while others treat these details loosely to maintain narrative flow. Before beginning play, it is wise to develop 3 campaign pitches instead of only 1. Presenting several options allows players to choose the style of game that interests them the most. One pitch might involve high fantasy warfare, another science fiction exploration, and a third political intrigue in a dying empire. By offering choices, the games master increases player investment from the beginning. It is important to find a niche. Some referees excel at fantasy adventures filled with exploration and magic. Others prefer science fiction, horror, or contemporary settings. Discover personal strengths helps shape the future of campaigns. That means for a first campaign, set an objective at first, leaving the open worlds for later. The world is conveyed by words, so make it memorable. This means that using words that go back to the campaign description. If it's dystopian, show that by images such as the white uniforms that everybody wears. A mythic campaign draws inspiration from the great mythologies and epics of human history. Stories such as the Greek myths, the Chinese classic romance of the Three Kingdoms, the Lord of the Rings, demonstrate how mythic storytelling combines larger-than-life characters with themes of fate, sacrifice, and destiny. Mythic campaigns often involve legendary artifacts, divine intervention, and world-changing events. Heroic campaigns often focus on the creation of archetypes. Works such as A Wizard of Earthsea, Elric of Meldomene, or Arthurian legends show how flawed individuals struggle towards greatness. These campaigns often emphasize personal growth, moral choices, and sacrifice. Dystopian campaigns examine how societies decay through gradual change. 1984 explores control through language and surveillance, while The Handmaid's Tale examines oppression through social and sexual control. The Clock Striking 13 is a powerful indictment. Brave New World presents a society pacified through pleasure and comfort. These works demonstrate that dystopians are rarely created overnight. They emerge from many small compromises and decisions. Film noir campaigns focus on corruption, desperation, and moral ambiguity. In these settings, illicit activity becomes deeply tied to society itself. Crime, betrayal, and more personal failure are central themes. Characters often struggle to survive rather than achieve idealistic victories. Understanding the campaign objectives helps determine tone, world building, rules, and the emphasis on character design. Within the campaign, there are adventures. These are a series of sessions around a particular conflict. For example, Who Gets the Maltese Falcon is an adventure. Diving into a subterranean world into the unknown is an adventure. Who Oft Professor Smith at Miskatonic University is an adventure. The adventures must fit within the structure of a campaign. People need to accomplish certain activities in order to move their objectives forward, whether that is finding gold, discovering hidden mystery that wraps the campaign, or trying to reach for a single magic item that the players need. Even the best campaign idea cannot succeed without players. Finding a good group is one of the greatest challenges for many games masters. Friends are often the easiest starting point because of trust and the familiarity that already exist. However, existing friendships can sometimes create scheduling difficulties or mismatched expectations. Local game stores are another valuable resource. Many stores host organized play nights, bulletin boards, and beginner events where players can meet other players interested in role-playing games. These communities often provide experienced players willing to join new campaigns. Online communities have become increasingly important. Platforms such as Discord allow players from around the world to organize games, discuss rules, settings, and campaign ideas. Dedicated roleplay servers can help games masters recruit players with specific interests. Online play has expanded dramatically as well, allowing campaigns to continue despite geographic distance. Virtual tabletops and voice communication tools make remote gaming practical for many groups. Often, libraries may hold single-shot adventures. Why not pitch to the assembled players the idea of a campaign if a single shot looks appealing? New games masters should start small. Simpler systems reduce the burden of rules management and allow the referee to focus on storytelling, pacing, and player interaction. Games such as Basic Fantasy or Classic Traveler are very useful starting points because they emphasize core role-playing fundamentals without excessive complexity. It is important to find a niche. Some referees excel at fantasy adventures filled with exploration and magic. Others prefer science fiction, horror, or contemporary settings. Discover personal strengths helps shape the future of campaigns. That means for a first campaign, set an objective at first, leaving the open worlds for later. One useful principle is the rule of 3. Maintain 2 active campaigns and one-shot adventures. During Session 0, players discuss expectations, themes, boundaries, scheduling, character concepts, and campaign tone. This meeting assures that everyone understands the style of game being played. A mismatch of expectations can destroy a campaign before it truly begins. Maps are especially valuable during this stage. Visual representations help players understand geography, politics, and travel distances. Even simple maps improve immersion and assist with decision-making. A short introductory scenario or taste of the campaign can also be useful. Rather than overwhelm players with long introductions, a brief encounter or scene allows them to experience the tone and mechanics directly. Session 0 builds trust between the players and the games master. It also reduces future misunderstandings by establishing clear communications from the start. If something did not work, the next question is why. Was the pacing too slow? Were the rules confusing? Did the players lack clear objectives? Identifying the cause of problems is more productive than simply expressing frustration. Most campaign issues can be fixed through adjustment rather than abandonment. Before ending the session, the group should also plan the next meeting. Consistent meetings is one of the most important factors in maintaining a long-running campaign. Every games master can improve. Self-criticism is not about discouragement, but about growth. After each session, it is important to analyze what worked well and what failed. Perhaps combat encounters took too long. Perhaps non-player characters lacked depth. Maybe the players became confused about the plot. Honest reflection helps refine future performance. One effective approach is to identify the single most important improvement for the next session. Attempting to fix everything at once can become overwhelming. Focus on one area. Better pacing, stronger descriptions, improved preparation, or more meaningful player choices can create steady improvement over time. Role-playing games are collaborative experiences. Mastery comes through practice. The best campaigns are rarely perfect from the beginning. Instead, they evolve through experimentation, feedback, and continuous learning. The area of game theory is one where the RPG space needs work. Part of the reason why role-playing games were first invented in the 1970s was that game theory invaded political science, sociology, and economics. Part of the reason is that game theory offered a way of avoiding nuclear annihilation, mutually assured destruction. MAD. The irony, of course, was that the solution was almost as tricky to maintain as could be imaginable. To win the battle, you needed to commit to waging a suicidal war to prevent an unlimited war. In fact, this is what Kim Il-jung has to do because of his small nuclear forces. One of the failures of the new RPGs is the loss of the lesson that game theory provides different choices rather than a head-on fight. This is why many people in the old-school Renaissance or Reformation ask a different question. What do the players need out of this encounter? Sometimes it will be the complete and utter annihilation of the opponent, but that is actually fairly rare. After all, the battle at the end of the Seven Samurai occurs only once. In other cases, the objective may not be a fight, but a negotiation for which the players can give in return for what they want. This even shows up in stories from mythology. This trio of options, fight, retreat, or negotiate, is often at the core of literature. The Hobbit and Wizard of Earthsea have examples. One does not fight a dragon, usually. This comes about because the monster has its own reasons for fighting or not fighting. For example, a dragon in the middle of the air may not want to fight a group of armed and dangerous adventurers. In its lair, however, a dragon may feel that there are ample reasons to defend to the death. Both the player and the monster choose before knowing what the other side has chosen. Campaign expresses itself by the logic of how the monster acts. Dragons in Tolkien are not the same as dragons of the Renaissance. Therefore, the dragons in a Tolkien-esque world will choose differently on a game theory way than Albrecht-Dürer's dragon. Creating and running a tabletop role-playing game requires imagination, organization, and adaptability. It also requires a sense of what you're focusing on. From designing the campaign structure to conducting Session Zero, every stage contributes to the overall experience. The secret comes from inside your mind. A successful campaign depends not only on settings, but also on communication, player investment, and the willingness of the game's master to learn from each session. You should understand the rudiments of game theory early so that the players will understand it in the framework of the game. Whether the game is realistic, mythic, heroic, dystopian, or film noir, it is the ultimate purpose to create a memorable experience shared by the group. In the next video, we will craft a fantasy campaign. The first will be bought based on a few different options from realistic to imaginary, namely Harn, Menaria, Earthsea. After that, the second one will be a first campaign that starts in a local town with Dungeon Draft and Wonder Draft. This has been a word salad, so we need to start playing. Then we will do other campaigns and other videos, like science fiction. After all, you need some examples before you start working on your own campaign. That's not funny.